It was late December in San Diego, the kind of night when the ocean air feels heavier than usual. I sat alone in my kitchen, a cup of tea gone cold beside me when my phone buzzed. I opened it and froze. On the screen was a photo of my entire family, smiling under the golden light of an Antarctic sunset. Champagne glasses raised high, laughter caught in motion. They were standing on the deck of the expedition ship Aquila, bundled in bright parkas, looking like something out of a travel magazine. Every face was there. My son Daniel, my 2 grandchildren, even Madison's college friends I barely knew, 37 people in total. I counted them once, then again and again. 37, but not me. Just 3 days earlier, Madison had told me with her sweet little smirk, "I'm so sorry, Nora. There just isn't a bunk left on the Aquila. These trips are really for younger people. You'd be miserable." I'd nodded the way I always did when she decided what was best for me. Smiled, pretended to understand. But as I stared at that photo, my family together at the edge of the world while I sat in an empty kitchen, I felt something snap inside me. That was the moment I stopped being the silent, forgotten widow. That was the moment I decided if there was no place for me in their story, then I would write a new one where I wasn't just included, I was in control. I set the phone down carefully, almost like it might burn straight through the table if I held it any longer. The kitchen around me was silent, but inside my chest, something had shifted. For years, Madison thought she had me figured out. A harmless old widow. A woman who filled her days with book clubs and knitting circles. A woman too tired to question anything, too flexible to push back. She never once asked about the door at the end of the hall, the room I always kept locked. She assumed it was just storage, filled with dusty boxes of Robert's old papers and furniture no one wanted anymore. But that room was never about clutter. That room was where Robert and I built our life's foundation. Ledger books, investment reports, strategies we'd mapped out on yellow notepads late at night while everyone else slept. I walked down the hall and turned the brass key, the one Madison had never seen. The room smelled faintly of cedar and old ink, the air heavier with memory than time. Against one wall sat Robert's oak desk, scarred from decades of use but still steady, still strong, just like the man himself. I sat down, opened the laptop, and with a few keystrokes, the quiet widow Madison dismissed so easily became someone else entirely. Someone her polished parties and designer dresses had never prepared her to face. By sunrise, I wasn't the forgotten grandmother anymore. By sunrise, I was the silent partner she never saw coming. By the time the first streak of dawn cut through the blinds, my screen was already alive with numbers, contracts, and files that Madison thought were buried. Glacier Light Media's data room opened like a vault, and all I had to do was look with the eyes Robert had trained me to use. He used to say, "Fraud always leaves crumbs, Nora. People hide money the way children hide candy, sloppy, careless, convinced no one's watching." And Madison, she was no different. The first breadcrumb was almost too easy. A nonprofit in Alaska billed for a premium VR conservation package. Except what they received was the same stock footage recycled from a travel blog 3 years ago. Madison pocketed the difference, clean as if she'd skimmed cream off the top. The second trail glowed brighter. Duplicate invoices, same footage, same edits, charged to 2 different clients on 2 different continents. Clever, maybe, if you're arrogant enough to think no one ever checks. But the third breadcrumb, that one almost made me laugh. A business wellness retreat in Patagonia charged to company funds. Receipts for 5-star hotels, couples massages, champagne tastings, and the name on every confirmation. Not Daniel, not a client. It was Jax Rivera, her fitness consultant, parading his abs on Instagram while Madison tagged their location like a love letter written in neon lights. Click after click, I saved it all. Screenshots, statements, metadata, every digital fingerprint they thought would fade into the noise. By the time the sun fully rose, I didn't just have suspicions. I had a case file, and with every document I saved, my purpose sharpened. This wasn't about a missed bunk on a ship anymore. This was about a woman who thought she could steal, cheat, and erase me from my own family's story, and I was going to show her exactly how wrong she was. By New Year's Eve, while the rest of San Diego lit fireworks, I lit a different kind of fuse. Through Blue Mantle Capital, the fund Robert and I once whispered about in late-night strategy sessions, I executed a quiet move, one Madison would never see coming. I converted distressed debt into equity, and with one signature, I owned 40% of Glacier Light Media. It was the kind of transaction Madison would have dismissed as too complicated for someone like me. But I had lived in the world of contracts and contingencies longer than she had been alive. Numbers were my language. Risk was my second skin. And the beauty of silence, it makes people careless. Madison never questioned the new silent partner behind her desperate cash infusion. She was too busy showing off polar sunsets on her socials to realize she had just invited me inside her empire. I sat at Robert's old oak desk that night, watching the transfer documents finalize. The cursor blinked, the screen glowed, and for the first time in years, I felt alive. But I didn't stop there. On January 2nd, while Madison was still unpacking souvenirs and shaking off jet lag, a notice landed on her desk. A comprehensive audit, mandatory, binding, and signed under my authority as principal investor. She wanted me invisible. She wanted me quiet. She wanted me irrelevant. Instead, I had become her shadow shareholder, her judge, and soon enough her reckoning. The morning of the meeting, San Diego wore its usual disguise. Sunshine on the bay, sailboats drifting like nothing in the world could go wrong. But in the Frostline Tower on the 22nd floor, storm clouds were already gathering. I arrived early, dressed in the charcoal suit I'd bought for this very moment. Power clothes, the salesgirl had called them. She was right, because when I caught my reflection in the elevator doors, I didn't see a forgotten widow anymore. I saw a woman who had built, lost, and learned to fight back without raising her voice. The conference room gleamed with glass and steel. Madison sat at the head of the table, her vacation tan still fresh but her eyes restless. Daniel was beside her, confused, protective. Across from them, David Chen, the auditor I had personally retained, sorted his papers with the calm precision of a surgeon preparing for an operation. When I walked in, the air shifted. Madison blinked, then forced a brittle smile. "Margaret, I mean Nora, what are you doing here? Daniel, did you call her to support us?" I set my leather briefcase on the table, opened it slowly, deliberately. The sound of the latch echoed louder than fireworks. "Actually, Madison," I said, my voice steady as steel, "I'm here as your business partner." Silence, the kind of silence that stretches, bends, and then snaps. Daniel stared at me as if I'd just spoken in another language. Madison's face drained of color, the tan turning ash gray. David cleared his throat. "Mrs. Park represents Blue Mantle Holdings, the silent partner that now owns 51% of Glacier Light Media. She is here today to review the findings of our audit." I slid the first folder across the table. Invoices, duplicates, overbilling. A wellness retreat in Patagonia that looked suspiciously like a lover's getaway. Each document laid down like a card in a game Madison didn't know we were playing. Daniel's eyes darted over the pages, his jaw tightening. "Madison, what is this? These charges, these trips you told me." I leaned forward, my finger tapping a glossy photo clipped to the file. Madison and Jack's arms entwined, the hotel logo shining behind them. the metadata timestamp circled in red. "Shall I explain?" I asked softly, "or will you?" For a moment, Madison opened her mouth, but no words came. The room seemed to hold its breath. I sat back, folded my hands, and let the weight of the evidence fill the silence. "This isn't about a missed bunk on a ship," I said finally. "This is about theft, deception, and the arrogance of believing no one was watching." And across that shining table, I saw the truth land in Madison's eyes. She wasn't facing her meek mother-in-law anymore. She was facing the woman who now held the power to dismantle everything she had built, piece by fraudulent piece. Madison never went quietly. She never had. 2 days after the Frostline meeting, I heard the knock on my door. When I opened it, there she was, flanked by her attorney, a TV reporter, and of all people, Jax Rivera standing awkwardly in the background like a schoolboy caught cheating on a test. "Mrs. Park," the reporter began, microphone raised, "we're here to talk about elder abuse. There are concerns you may be the victim of financial predators exploiting your grief." I almost laughed. That was Madison's counterstrike, to paint me, the woman who'd built the very portfolio she envied, as a confused old widow, too fragile to make her own decisions. She wanted to turn me into the victim of my own story. But what Madison forgot is this: I prepare before the storm hits. I invited them inside, led them straight to Robert's oak desk, and opened the folder I'd kept ready for exactly this moment. "Would you like to see my financial records?" I asked sweetly. First, my 20-year investment portfolio, diversified, profitable, and meticulously tracked. Current value over $4 million. The reporter's eyebrows shot up. Second, 5 years of tax returns, each one clean, audited, irrefutable. And finally, the jewel of the crown, a medical evaluation signed just last week by Dr. Alan Cho, confirming I had no cognitive decline, no impairment, no excuses. I turned the laptop toward them. "So tell me again, who exactly is manipulating me?" The cameraman hesitated, the lens wobbling. Jax shifted his weight, guilt written across every muscle in his body. The reporter lowered her mic, no longer sure where the story was headed. And Madison, her face betrayed the truth. She'd bet everything on me crumbling under public pressure, on me shrinking away from humiliation. Instead, I had turned her script inside out. I leaned back in Robert's chair, hands folded calmly. "The only predator here," I said, "is the one who stole from her clients and lied to her family." The silence that followed was beautiful, thick, undeniable, and deadly for Madison's little performance. In that moment, her counterstrike collapsed, flipping cleanly back onto her, and she finally realized every move she made I had already prepared for. The collapse of Madison's counterattack left a vacuum, and I wasted no time filling it. Within a week, I secured the remaining shares from nervous investors who no longer trusted a company tainted by scandal. With one clean transaction, my stake rose to 68%. Glacier Light Media, the empire Madison flaunted, was now under my control. But control wasn't the goal. Justice was. The first order of business, restitution. Every nonprofit, every small business she'd cheated received a full refund plus interest. Some cried on the phone. Some wrote letters of thanks. All of them knew the truth, that someone had finally held Madison accountable. Then came the restructuring. I appointed a new COO, Dr. Priya Nayar, a woman whose integrity matched her brilliance. Together, we cut the excess, slashed the vanity expenses, and redirected every resource into genuine client service. The numbers turned almost overnight. Without embezzlement bleeding the company dry, profit margins actually soared. And in the middle of it all, my family was being rebuilt, piece by fragile piece. Daniel filed for custody of the children, and the court, unimpressed with Madison's string of missed hearings, granted it. Lily and Kai, my grandchildren, started spending Sundays in my backyard, guitars and homework spread out while their father manned the grill. For the first time in years, laughter filled my home again. Real laughter. Not the staged smiles of a photo meant to exclude me, but the messy, warm sound of people who were safe together. I looked around one evening, at the children playing, at Daniel finally relaxed, at the garden Robert and I had planted now blooming again, and I realized something. Justice wasn't just about punishing Madison. It was about restoring balance, returning what was stolen, giving the next generation a place where truth mattered more than appearances. Madison had tried to erase me. Instead, I had rebuilt everything she thought she controlled, stronger, cleaner, and beyond her reach. 6 months later, the ocean looked different to me. Not colder, not harsher, just honest. The tide never apologizes for coming in or pulling away. It just moves, steady, certain, inevitable. That Sunday evening, I sat on the cliffs of La Jolla with my family. Daniel was at the grill, the children strumming guitars and laughing as the sun spilled gold across the waves. It wasn't the deck of a luxury ship, but it was ours. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like an afterthought. I felt like the center, the standard. Glacier Light was thriving under new leadership, its clients made whole, its reputation slowly rebuilt. What had once been Madison's stage for deception had become my platform for integrity. My lawyer, David Chen, texted me earlier that day. Final restitution cleared, all accounts balanced. Balanced, the word tasted good. I keep that old photo, the one from the ship, in a small silver frame on my desk. 37 faces smiling under an Antarctic sky with me deliberately absent. Once, it cut me open. Now, it reminds me of the greatest gift Madison ever gave me, the chance to remember who I was when no one else did. She tried to define me as too old, too irrelevant, too small for their world. Instead, I set the standard for what our family would become. Family isn't measured by who makes room for you on their yacht. It's measured by who shows up on the shoreline week after week, choosing honesty over appearances, loyalty over lies. And as the sun slipped beneath the Pacific, I whispered to myself, there is always space for the truth.